here again. It is Atlanta Discuss. My name remains Ade Balogun. I'm still your host and I'm moderator. Some call you moderator, some call me anchor. It's still the same thing. Thank you, several continents of the world: Antarctica, Asia, Africa, Europe, North America, South America. We appreciate your loyalty always. We promised you a 5-part series on State of the Nation Nigeria. Due to popular demand, we have to expand it to 10 because there were a lot of nagging issues. I've always said it, Nigeria is the largest concentration of Black people on the planet. There are statistics that show that 1 out of every 6 Black person on the planet is a Nigerian. Clearly active behind Shadow, the beacon of hope for the Black world. At independence in 1960, things doesn't seem to be going too well. Some say battered almost beyond repair. But Nigeria, we have a way of, getting out of it all the time. But today we have an erudite scholar, a man of the people, a man that has slayed stereotype from a very young age, a true Nigerian that's gone to school in Gusau, went to school in Kano, went to school in Ibadan. He's pan-Nigerian in trait and character, a patriot by any means, by any standard available. Professor Utomi is our guest today. Prof, welcome to Atlanta Discuss.
Thank you so very much. It's such a pleasure to be able to join you.
Thank you, sir. So, in our tradition, we just go for the jugular. We don't waste time because we just need to get things going. My first question to you, Prof, is this. We're doing this 10-part series. You are obviously our night in the episode, and our topic for this is what the future holds for Nigeria. In the past, I know you've said so much, you've always admired the Asian countries. You said so much about Malaysia, Indonesia, how they got it right, how India did not just adopt everything they got from Britain, how they created their own niche and all that. There was a discussion we even had where you said, look, Pakistani broke out of India and they're on their own, Bangladesh and all that. Now, in our own case, we look at the judiciary, we looked at nepotism, our custom, law enforcement, Nigerians in diaspora, not to organize also to do what the Indian diasporas have been doing for Nigeria. And recently we see that Nigeria has normalized mass adoption of children. We've normalized it. And those children's only crime is that they just dared to go to school. So, and you also look at ethnic agitation everywhere. Just yesterday, they were shooting in Ibadan from some supposedly Yoruba ethnic nationalities. There's so much undocumented about agitation, even in the North Central. What does the future hold for Nigeria, Prof, at this rate?
Well, to start with, my disposition as a person is a positive one. It is based on hope. And my Christian upbringing underlines why hope matters. This is the basis of the faith, that we have hope and that we believe that with God everything is possible. I think that the trouble of Nigeria is politics. All kinds of great possibilities have been, unfortunately, negatively affected by the politics of a few. I talk about my growing up. You mentioned part of what it is, in your introduction. I was very pan-Nigerian in upbringing, growing up across the North, across the West, across the East. And so many of the things that get sucked into this emotion versus reason challenge for why Nigeria is not doing as it should do, I don't completely, relate to because of my background. You look at those around me, they don't necessarily come from my village and all of that. So maybe exposure has helped me to have a different perspective. And I believe that through human history, where people have been able to be less identity sensitive and more progress oriented, a lot more has been achieved. And I still live in the hope that Nigeria can be less micro identity driven and more humanity driven. So I remain with a very strong, positive disposition in spite of everything. Yesterday in Washington, D.C., I had dinner with a very bright young Nigerian entrepreneur who has contributed on both sides of the big pond. And he was saying to me, look, everybody seems to want to leave Nigeria. But the difference between people wanting to leave Nigeria, from Nigeria, and those who leave their countries elsewhere is that you know that they love Nigeria, but they just want to make a better life for themselves. In some countries, when people leave, they leave. But Nigerians, when they leave, they still think, they still care. They just wish Nigeria was run differently so that they could have done what they're doing in Nigeria. And this is really very, very important to note. It's part of the reason why one should have hope, because the disposition makes it realistic to expect that the Nigerian diaspora can play a catalytic role, in spite of not being as well organized today. They can play a catalytic role in the Nigeria renewal, the Nigeria revival, and Nigeria redemption. I am convinced that when people sum things up, they will find that there's greater good to themselves as individuals with a Nigeria that is together than one that falls apart. That does not mean that if we don't get enough reasonable politicians to focus people on Nigeria together, that people should be unduly yoked by staying in something that does not work. If clearly it's not working, then obviously alternatives have to be sought. However, I'm still convinced in my spirit that it will work. It can work. We just have to get a few of these politicians who play the divide game to understand the greater benefits that comes from the together game, but not tell people Nigeria is cannot be broken, cannot be questioned. That's nonsense. Everything can be broken. Everything can be questioned. The reason that the United States has in its convention and literal constitution the fact that anybody can secede and yet nobody secedes is because the existence of that provision make politicians want to work towards people being in it, seeing the good in it. So I would say that we can't harass people and say you cannot break up. No, you can break up. But when there is greater good in together, then you're foolish when you want to break up. Having said all that, I think that we have seen mistakes, many, many mistakes made in the past. But I'm one that believes that we can overcome yesterday. It happened to many countries. As you mentioned earlier, I like to talk about the Asian experience quite a bit. In the last 2 months, I've been in several Asian countries. I was on my second visit to Thailand in March. I was in Taiwan and so on and so forth. Of course, Singapore and Malaysia are places that I go to very frequently. And I keep looking at the dynamics and the things that are changing there. And what happened to leadership, how leadership changed things in those countries. And I'm actually now revising a whole section in a book I wrote that's titled The Art of Leading. I want to add 3 new chapters. In fact, one of the chapters goes back to the Asian leadership model. What did they do differently in Asia that enabled some people to emerge as unifiers in a divided environment and push the people towards success? What has Modi done in India? What did Mahathir do in Malaysia? What did Lee Kuan Yew do in Singapore? What are those things that enable them to overcome adversity and achieve what they have achieved? Perhaps those reviews in this revised edition of the book, The Art of Leading, will make a difference to how our country journeys forward.
Thank you very much, sir. So, I mean, look, there's a reason we have picked this topic for this episode 9, which is what does the future hold for Nigeria? Because I followed a lot of your work, a lot of things to say, and the advices you gave as a young man in the 80s that are happening today, you know, I will refer to some eventually as we go on in this interview. And I remember a lot of things you said already, Babangida did. Some of these issues people are trashing today, that we're not productive enough, we're not saving enough. Anybody that's followed you will know that you're as consistent as the Northern Star. You have been saying it for a very long time. I remember when the LBS started, I mean, a lot of us went there there was those courses that we did there, the financial management for non-financial people.
Yes.
And the reference was that, okay, even if you're not a financial person, you know, you should at least know you emphasis on how to brush up and so on and so forth. So now I'm asking you this now. Nigeria, let's say we want to recalibrate. Maybe people in authority don't know what to do or how to go about it. Okay, we're in dire straits. There's no doubt about it. How should we go about it step by step? Can you help? Because that's why we're doing what we're doing now for posterity, so that it will guide people. What do you think should be the next step? Should it be socioeconomic? Should it be constitutional? Should it be economic? What should the government of the day do, at least for now? How should they navigate?
It has to be a little bit of all of those, but of course, you have to have sequencing. I think that to offer people hope, you must say to them, look, we know that the structures have not worked well, and start a process of constitution review, a process that would lead us to dealing more with the issues of subsidiarity, the issues of essentially pushing more power and authority down to the subnational units of government. That is a very important thing. You have to deal with the even the basic structure of governance. I mean, there's this debate between the presidential system and the Westminster traditional parliamentary democracy. I, for many reasons, favor the Westminster parliamentary system more, for various reasons, including costs and all of that. Anyway, when you start a constitution reform process, there is a base to move from. The 1914 conference under Goodluck Jonathan provides a working document from which progress can go. I mean, that document was almost completely adopted. I think had politics not gotten in the way and Jonathan wanted another term, and he had moved to that document, Nigeria would be a completely different place today. But it is what it is, and we have to get back to working on the constitution. So that needs to get on the way. While that is getting on the way, there are fundamental things about the economy that we cannot but deal with. We have seen some runaway stuff. Inflation, currency goes dramatically up. A lot of the initiatives by the central bank has brought it down to a more acceptable level. It might even go down past the 1,000 naira to the dollar mark. But we must also do that to ensure that the achieved level is sustainable. We don't want to completely deplete our foreign reserves in the name of trying to defend the naira. However, I think that attitudes matter. I keep saying that values shape human progress. Yemi Cardoso is a friend of mine, and I trust in his values. That is one of the things that makes me sort of hopeful in spite of all the things that, because of his values, he will not do extremely dramatic things that can be untoward. However, we cannot just look at the monetary side alone. We must deal with the fiscal side. How do we stimulate production? Rapid, not just believe that things will trickle down. Rapid, deliberate, purposeful, boost of production. And there's so many ideas sitting around that. I mean, I have talked so much about factor endowments, the idea of latent comparative advantage and value chains being the basis around which we organize value-added production in the agricultural sector. We need something dramatic like we had the OFN and such programs back under military rule and all of that. And we just give a jab, injection to the butt of production, and people get excited. Of course, another very critical part of it is security. People are not going to produce if they're looking over their shoulder all the time to see if there are insurgents, bandits, whatever it is that we'll call them, headsmen in their space. And then we must we're looking to create, in my view, an entrepreneurial people's capitalism. And one of the finest examples of it for me is Taiwan. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I was in Taiwan just a few weeks ago, a country of 24 million or so people with nearly 1.6 million SMEs, and not the SME of selling nut and pepper in the corner. I'm talking about SME of innovative and creative ventures. And if we can just get that going, get the labor Congress, labor movement in general, to recognize that it's not about how much pay me. It's about how productive we are. Productivity wins today. Once people are productive enough, you must pay them commensurately, and then we can therefore grow confidence in the country. There is, of course, a major problem. There's a legitimacy crisis in the country. Not many people believe in the outcome of the last election, and it slows them down in terms of committing to the country. Smart politicians should be going for how you create a leadership of national unity at this kind of time. It's not the best time for partisan politics and stuff like that. But I've not seen that kind of creative leadership, unfortunately. But a very young man called General Yakubu Gowon did this, the more difficult period in our country's history, and he created that government of national unity that brought Packer from the Middle Belt Congress, Awolowo from the not Unity Party. It was the one before it.
Action Group.
Action Group. Thank you. People like Ali Mongonu from NPC, Shehu Shagari from NPC, and from NCNC, people like Adiro Gunsoya, and so on and so forth. So it is important that we essentially show this kind of leadership.
Fantastic. So now, from what you have said, you seem to have a lot of soft spot for the parliamentary system of government. And I'm sure one of your reasons is that the one we practice now, the American system, is being, let's say, more expensive. What are the advantages you think that the parliamentary system has over the system we operate now? And what do you think is the best option we have currently?
Well, the parliamentary system has the added advantage, besides being more cost-effective, of easier accountability. I mean, the Prime Minister's question time in the UK is literally something that all citizens can look to almost every day, and all of that, and you can hold people in office accountable. And when the government fails to meet the earnings of people, you can fall, and you replace them. When they know that, they will be more sensitive. But now, all you have to do is bribe enough people, weaponize poverty, push ethnicity, religion, and all kinds of things, and grab it. And once you grab it for the next 4 years, you can literally be running as you wish. And state capture becomes the essence of governance. And that's been very damaging for our democracy. Literally has not made it a democracy. But in the parliamentary system, you can, the man that gets voted, him, he's just from around the corner. If his grandfather was a thief, that his grandfather, was even better than his father, not to talk of him. So the local people know the person. I said, no, surely we can't put this kind of person. But when you're going around the whole country, who knows you? You come from one far corner of the country. So in that sense, accountability is better in a parliamentary system. And, if it's a citizen legislature, even the better, like we had in the 60s, where the people actually do their work, live in the society, in the system, and they feel the problems of the people, they feel the pain of the people. Not this one that they migrate to Abuja and are completely disconnected from the country. They don't really feel the pain of the people, and they don't know what's going on. But that will not happen with a parliamentary democracy that is a citizen legislature.
So, for example, I spoke to some guy, his name is Yomi Koiki, is one of these Odua movements. The topic was, that was episode 6, the topic was ethnic agitation. So, and he's Yoruba clearly, we probably worked with Professor Banji Akitoye. I'm sure you know Professor Banji Akitoye. And I asked him that, Today, the president of Nigeria is Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He's of the Yoruba stock, clearly. And the question was, this man was part of Nadeko struggle. Yeah, he's been confederalism from even his utterances and all that. So my question to him was, don't you feel that with the Yoruba presidency, the agitation should subside? And the man's response was no. He said more than ever before, the agitation should be louder now. That Bola Tinubu does not represent the Yoruba people, that he's president of Nigeria, that what he's going to do, he said, in fact, what he said is that worst case scenario, Bola Tinubu spent 8 years there. Whoever comes after him will destroy everything he has done, start afresh. And we can see the trajectory. Buhari came. I mean, let's look at Obasanjo, for example. I mean, with all the shortcomings, did a lot in his 8 years, probably the best we've seen in recent times. And Yar'Adua came in, all the effort they made on power generation, a lot of those turbines were just left at honor. Only God knows where they are. Jonathan came, and there's really no continuity in government, what the gentleman was saying. So my question to you is this. If we sit down and jaw, for example, I know a lot of our leaders are scared of that. They think if we jaw, sit down and discuss, that they will lose the authority and the leverage they have today. How is it possible to convince those in power today that we really have to sit down and talk? Because I don't think they see it the way some of us look at it, that we really need to sit down as a matter of urgency. Because all the 6 sub-regions we have today, there's some level of insurgency in each one of them. And agitation, clearly well clear.
Yeah, and this is really because I think people get so narrow-minded, so self-serving, so narcissistic, that they forget that the bigger goal is the common good of all. I think if they get to sit down and reflect and ask, why am I in this business? Beyond the fact that I have power and my friends can enjoy, get contracts, then they will find that there's something bigger. Let them check with their friends who got contracts yesterday, where they are. It's a lose-lose game when they think like that. Because in the end, they too will fall into that same trap. But the day they lose power, they too will become the dung heap of history. But if they can more broadly say, look, what is the common good of all? Let's talk about it. Then they will have the opportunity of immortality, of being remembered for the ones who fix the problems. And so I think that people will have to think about their essence, their humanity, the reason for being, why they are there. Purpose. A purpose-driven life will make them come to a different kind of sense for what should be done. And if they miss the opportunity, history will be very unkind to them, because there are narrow windows opening and closing. If because of their looking at self-interest, they end up closing the window for the whole country to make progress, then it will, be very terrible for them in the hands of history. So I would like to urge them to think big, think Nigeria, think human progress, and make a choice very quickly to fix things. Because if we live in this legitimacy wilderness, even with the best of ideas, we'll just stumble and fumble and wobble our way through, whether it's 4 years or 8 years. Then one day, the whole thing will just blow up in everybody's face. And Somalia will be before us. I have no illusions. I've seen it happen. I've studied and watched countries where it has happened. A friend of mine used to say, a Nigerian embassy official in Freetown in Sierra Leone, that they used to laugh and say all these funny skirmishes in the outskirts, in the hinterlands of Sierra Leone. And then all of a sudden they were in the middle of Freetown and people's hands were being chopped off. And it was like magic. What? Can this thing reach Freetown? Yes, it has reached Freetown. A classmate of mine, a Liberian, who became Liberia's ambassador to Nigeria during the war in Liberia, Sirenius 4. It's a story he used to tell me in those days. He said, you Nigerians, you're spending so much of your money, wasting so much of your blood in our country to save us, and we're grateful. But what we can't understand is that you can't seem to see what got us where we are, and you are going down that same path. I think if people can just be more reflective, then we know that there's need to do more, much more, than just holding on to power and preventing a real conversation because they think it is their turn to hold on to power.
You've said so much in the past about failure of leadership. When I remember when I asked you, not just me asking, you've said it so many times that all this tribalism, all this agitation is based purely on failure of leadership. That if a leader comes, does the right thing, lives above board. If his wife is not collecting contract, nobody will come. You give all those examples of living by example, something we clearly lack today. Now, we also know that a lot of our past presidents, both military and civilian, are perpetrated so much crime, especially financial crimes, and they always feel the opulence in which they live. They own this oil block and all that. So clearly a failure of leadership. Now, do you think the inability of the country, the judicial system, let's say the country, like to hold these past leaders to account is part of why we're going around these circles?
The accountability definitely matters. If people see what has happened to those who have done wrong, they will be less inclined to doing wrong. I think that it is possible that we can begin to hold people to account in many different ways. However, even if we decide to draw a line in the sand and say, look, yesterday is too much of a burden, let's just face tomorrow, it still will work. Because you see, all these guys who, again, I was talking to this, I mentioned earlier, entrepreneur yesterday, and one of the issues that came up in our conversation was shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves. In America here, generations that have made a lot of money, started from nothing. 2 generations later, they're back to not having money in the family, So all these guys who think that their fortune has smiled on them usually end up with nothing. At the best, they die and their children blow the whole money, or the money is left in some foreign bank and does not serve the people or their inheritors or whatever well. So these fickle things, money, and that's one of the things we need to purge our culture of, this obsession with money. Look, I respect and admire Bill Gates, not because he has money. His money is nonsense, means nothing to me. I respected him because he created a technology that changed a generation. And unfortunately, in our country, we don't quite understand that. We have focused on money. And we think that once we have it and some people will run around us, tell us lies, and all of that stuff, that is what life is. I can tell you a very funny story. When during the after the coup of 1983, Chief Akinloye was in England, I guess when the coup took place or whatever. A friend of mine said to me, look, these guys in prison that they are put in Kirikiri, they're better off than Chief Akinloye, because not having somebody come into Dobale every morning and greet him is a worse punishment. It's a worse punishment than being in Kirikiri. So, hey guys, let's get real. All of those things are nothing, and we'll find eventually that, look, all these are big men with fancy cars, motorcades, siren. Look at Egypt, where the guys run around in smaller cars, and how much more their country is thriving. We got to come to a sense for what is value? What is actually what makes for progress? What is actually what makes you, you? I ask people all the time, look, in your village, check, who were the rich people 10 years ago? People remember who were the rich people in the village 10 years ago. But many remember the teacher who affected generations, that taught this father, taught the son, taught the grandson, but not the rich man of 10 years ago. And so that's the reality of life. Choose what is the greater value, and you will earn what is the most important. Immortality. Immortality, not just spiritual immortality of seeing God face to face, but material immortality, as I call it, of having people talk about you long after your body has become dust. That's what leadership should be about, not about the size of your bank account. Look, a Ghanaian high life musician, has more wisdom than most Nigerian politicians. His name is Ben Bracco. Ben Bracco, who says that any country in which the politicians are richer than the businessmen is a country on the brink of failure. And that's what our politicians don't seem to realize. They're all possessed with chasing after money, pushing their country to the brink of failure. But again, maybe we'll learn. And
Uh, 12 months down the line now, I mean, in May 29, we're already in April, May is next month, and President Tinubu has been there roughly for 1 year. What advice will you give him in lieu of all that is happening nationwide? There's so much happening. I know that they're celebrating the dollar coming down. Everybody knows that the foreign reserve is also been, I mean, not everybody, but those of us that are looking at the foreign reserve know that it's been depleted. That means we're paying also a high price for the exchange rate right now. So I'm speaking politically, economically, what the future holds for Nigeria. He's the president today. He's at the levers of power. A lot of mistakes have been made. I'm sure even he agrees with that. It's a learning curve for him also. But he's the one sitting there right now. What unsolicited advice can you give him, at least for now, to help recalibrate the country that is not working well?
Yeah, I've already offered that advice in different ways during the course of this conversation. Yes. And I think that the thing is to be less triumphalist and recognize that, look, I mean, Yar'Adua did that brilliantly. Yar'Adua came out and said, look, the election that brought me to office is flawed. I'd like to be remembered as the person who stopped that kind of election. Unfortunately, he did manage to live long enough to accomplish that. I think that he has to recognize that our institutions are in a very, very bad shape. And if anybody has managed to read my books on why nations are poor, they will find the growth drivers framework as amongst these most strong pillars: institutions, the strength of institutions, quality of the policy choices they make, the values of the country, the nature of the leadership, the human capital and entrepreneurship. These are amongst the key drivers of progress. So where are our institutions? They are devastatingly flawed in Nigeria right now. The judiciary is a laughing stock. Most people joke about the Nigerian judiciary. INEC, I'm amazed that the people still have the courage to talk in public because people make a joke of them at every turn. So if you focus on these variables, how can we boost human capital? How can we improve policy choices? How can we strengthen our institutions? How can we have values that sustain and proselytize those values? How can we find young leaders who are focused on the greater thing rather than blow? What do they say? They want to blow. Unless we can do all of those things, we are not offering leadership. This is the advice that I will offer anybody who wants to listen, to look at those things and see how they can energetically drive those, even if we are challenged in those areas, but show that we have done a mea culpa and would like to see them change, like Yar'Adua did. And that was why Yar'Adua really was potentially one of the greatest leaders Nigeria ever had. Potentially, unfortunately, didn't live to show it.
I agree with you on President Yar'Adua. Fantastic guy. If only had stayed longer. Now, 1 year into this government also, do you think, in your own opinion, do you think there's anything or two they have done very well that should be celebrated thus far?
I mean, things do happen every day. The sheer strength of character. Again, I mentioned that earlier of my friend Yemi Cardoso. In the central bank is a very important thing. So much damage was done to that institution, and just by continuing to show leadership, not minding whose ox is God, he's reshaping that institution. So that is a remarkable accomplishment. Yeah, and we needed that. We needed it, and we are glad that he is doing that. Obviously, I think that if we fish around, we'll see a number of interesting things going, but certainly not the Power One. The Power One is a complete and total mess. Somebody was joking and said, look, that I'm in band A. It means that I'm a bandit. I'm supposed to be getting 20 hours of power a day, but I said to him, where I live, 4 hours of power is a lot to get, and yet we're bandits. So I think that we need to create a system to better create better synergy in the power sector. That is a tragedy sector for Nigeria. The billions that we've poured into it with no result just hurts, makes the heart bleed. But this is exactly a statement of what corruption can do to a country. Considering that the iron badges that came to Lagos came from Vietnam, and the dramatic way Vietnam solved its power problems after the war, in moving barges with those turbines up the Mekong River and quickly getting other alternatives running before releasing those. Just tells a story of what is possible. And that's what we have not done, sadly. And this is likely because we got the great money there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Generators are poor, I know. Our former head of state, we have the like of General Basojo, General Babangida, General Abdul Salam, General Gowon, all generals, General Buhari, they're all still alive. Do you think they have a role to play in a new Nigeria going forward? They're all still there. They talk once in a while, and all that. Do you think collectively there's a lot they can do to help Nigeria move forward?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, people who have been through it, they can, with the benefit of hindsight, see the mistakes they made, and they are elders. I used to say to many of them, because I have the privilege of being very friendly on a personal one-on-one with almost all of them. I used to say to them, look, the country does not have elders. He is gone. You elders should speak up. Yes. Wow. You elders should speak up. And I hope he doesn't mind my saying this here, but I used to, at one time, General Dajuma got tired of my saying every time I saw it. They look past, don't start this elders business today.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So, yes, they do have a role.
But I mean, like you said, you're close to some of them. Do you think they regret some of the actions they took while they're there? That if they had known, they won't make some of those mistakes. I mean, this is for the benefit of those that are in power today. That's why I'm asking that question, so that they will know that those that did it in the past, they are not there now, but they are regretting it. I mean, on the personal level, I know you don't have to mention it, but do you think they do regret some of what they are?
Sure, some of them regret. Some of them regret many things. I mean, one of my great special friends is General Obasanjo. We have been frenemies since I was 19 years old. And I enjoy talking to him every time. And in fact, more than anybody else, I think he looks after me. From time to time, he will call me and say, "Are you okay?" And I will say, "Yes, I'm okay." But yes, many things that I disagreed with him that over time he came to agree with me on, and all of that. So yes, they do have, of course, General Gowon. I've been pressuring him to write his story, write the book, and he says to me, "Look, you write it. You spent a lot of time in my company back in the years." Because when I was writing my PhD thesis, I went to London when he was in exile and spent a whole Easter weekend with him in I don't know, it was 80, 81 or so. I mean, down the line, you can, all of them, there's none that I'm not friendly with. The person I have not talked with since he left office is General Buhari, but I spent a lot of time in his company between when he was head of state and when he came back. I don't know what he feels today, but, I'm quite candid when I say that I think that he's the worst we've ever had. Very sad. You would think he would have learned from his first experience, but he did significant damage in his second coming.
Oh, wow. I think a lot of us we agree with you. Let's talk quickly about opposition politics. Now, today, I mean, APC is in power, clearly, so we have PDP, Labour Party, you have some fragment of NNPP. Do you think the opposition party, because politics, democratic politics, as you know, opposition has a very strategic role to play. Do you think the current opposition, they're living up to the billing, in your opinion?
Well, it's work in progress. I mean, I can speak to a number of things that I have been personally involved in engineering, very quietly behind the scenes. I do think that for the PDP is going through a trial period, probably on its way to extinction, so it's more difficult for it. Labour, a few people who did not think such a thing would ever happen to them have gotten more excited than they should, and it's affecting their ability to recognize what is in front of them. Yes. Even APC that is in power is in total, whatever. If there was nothing to share, the APC would have completely exploded. So what is at stake here is a failure of the political party process in Nigeria. And this is why my focus is on building a brand new political party that can take elements from all of these in, but more important, bring new people into political life. With the focus on how you look, the Nigerian state has stopped being a developmental state. It's just a hustle for power, for state capture, spoils of office. And the primary thing that the state should be in this modern world, especially a developing country, should be a developmental state. Mano Edeji, has written some very interesting book on that in South Africa and in Nigeria. I think that recognizing that we should be working together as an elite to build our country is more important than the rubbish partisanship that is fake. Fake because tomorrow the same man in PDP will be in APC. The next day he will be in whatever. So let's be honest with ourselves, admit a failure of the political party system and look for how we should make things work for our country. That is really what the game should be about.
Should we be expecting a big political party that will fill the vacuum? Is it the office?
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping so. I'm very much doing work on it. In addition to a political party, I am helping found what I call the new tribe, which is a tribe of Nigerians who don't understand ethnic group, who don't understand corruption, who don't understand some of these terrible ills of our country, who recognize that values shape human progress. On the 1st of May, we will formally launch the website of the new tribe, the portal that will drive it. By the 1st of October, we will physically, from every point of this planet, get Nigerians in the diaspora and at home to have big events that announces that a tribe of Nigerians that can be trusted by the world is here. A tribe of Nigerians that are patriots and are content and want a better country rather than those that are looking for power for state capture purposes.
Do you have any specific advice for the Nigerian diaspora contingent, especially those of us in the United States, Canada, Axis? Yeah. Do you have?
Well, the Nigerian,
you see that the Indian diaspora played a very major role in the resurgence of India. India too has gone through a lot. In the Filipino, they're doing so much. The Taiwanese you spoke about, the Vietnamese you spoke about. There's a lot going on in the Southeast and the Far East. Countries that are not popular, but they're doing extraordinary things by virtue of their diaspora contingent. I mean, you'd be shocked that even the Haitians in America, they are propagating the Haiti gospel even better than we Nigerians, despite the fact that we have a large block. And it's looking every day that individually we do well, but there's a collective problem. That's why I like when you said that new tribe. What advice do you have for the Nigerian diaspora contingent?
Yeah. It's such a very important thing that the Nigerian diaspora, organize itself better because it is the hope of Nigeria. I mean, my views about beginning with Japan, the Meiji restoration and the post-Meiji rise of Japan in technology was a function of the Japanese diaspora from Germany, majorly. And the case has been the same with India. And look at what Indian academics in America did in the time of globalization. I mean, when people like Joseph Stiglitz were looking at globalization and its discontents, his colleague at the Ethics Institute in Colombia, Jagdish Bhagwati, was writing a book in defense of globalization because these things helped India. And you can go on to China and talk about similar things and all of that. And the Nigerian diaspora has emerged clearly in North America as perhaps the most thriving diaspora. The Nigerian diaspora responsible for 70% of doctors of color in the United States of America. Nigerian
Very true.
diaspora with numbers in education, that's remarkably higher than the general population and all of that. This diaspora should be a lot more effective than it is. But it can happen when they begin to talk to one another. As you may or may not know, I'm going to be spending a few months here in the United States as a policy scholar at the Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington. And one of the things I hope I can manage during this period is to engage the African diaspora broadly in terms of what it will do for the youth of Africa to make it more sensitive. I'm so excited about what has happened in Senegal and the Francophone countries. As I keep saying, then I wrote the book, Managing Uncertainty, Computational Strategy in Emerging Economies. In the 90s, I used to say, look at these Francophones, what's wrong with them? And we go to, they can't even get it. Today, the Francophones are the ones showing us how to do it. And I'm thankful to God for that. And hopefully the work that I can do here, even though my primary focus while in Washington is on sovereign wealth funds and infrastructure for intra-African trade. But I'm going to have a lot of time to work with the African diaspora as a stimulant for the transformation of the continent.
Thank you so much, sir. My next question was actually supposed to be on Senegal. And let me put it, you've said so much on it in a funny way, but I'm going to put it in my own way. I remember when Abdou Diop was president, Wade was supposed to take over, and Diop too was proving very hard. The people rose in favor of Wade, and he became president. Now, subsequently, Wade did the same thing Diop was trying to do. And I think it was Maki, and people wrote in favor of Maki, and Maki got it. And this time around, Maki was trying to be the honor for the people, and the people rose to the occasion again. Now we have Soko and Bashiru there in power. Now, what is the lesson about Senegal? I was talking to a couple of my friends, said, look, they're all Muslims, so it's easy to speak in one. And I said, no, but they're tribes, they're Wulufan. I think they said, look, yeah, but sir, is there a lesson for us as Nigerians? I mean, people rising up to the occasion.
There's a lesson for citizenship. One of the big challenges of Nigeria is that we don't have citizens. The old Greek people had society categorized at the very bottom of society. Those they call idiots. There are people who think only of themselves. Wow. You make progress beyond idiots to tribesmen. Tribalists, that's people who think of a group that they belong to, a primary group, whether it's language or religion, and everybody outside of their group is an enemy. And then the ultimate level you rise to in society is the citizen, where you now think of a shared humanity. What has happened is that citizenship has risen in Senegal, and citizens get together to stop bad government. In 1996, really very interesting thing. I was at a conference in France. It was called the Europe-Africa Summit, called by Aspen Institute France and former French Prime Minister Raymond Barre. And I was sitting between two gentlemen. To my right was Blaise Compaoré, who was then the sitting president of Burkina. And to my left was this opposition character called Abdoulaye Wade from Senegal. And he was railing and railing, and he would eventually become by the way, sitting across from me, because he was around, was IMF Deputy Managing Director, Alassane Ouattara, who is the current president of
Ivory Coast.
Ivory Coast. And I have stories to tell about walk around the lake in Annecy, and conversations with these men. But that's another matter, that's a story for another day. But look at how poorly some of them have performed relative to what they said. And this is why it's important to think character. Character matters. But thanks to citizenship in Senegal for keeping things steady.
Even if you don't agree, I think, and I've spoken to a lot of people, that you're potential presidential material for Nigeria. You're pan-Nigerian in education, you've been everywhere, you know everybody. There are stories you tell that People who really, how did this man know this story? You only have spoken to the source. Yeah, you speak to a lot of sources, you are one-on-one with them. You have a template for how it should be done. One of the problems we do have is people get into power, they don't have the templates for how to get out of it. Your reputation is intact. You're a mentor's mentor, leader's leader. If the office of the citizens, for example, live up to its billings and push comes to shove, and this party you're talking about, parties of no tribe, and all those people come together, look, Patrick, okay, Dinachi, Utomi, we want you to come and do this for us. Will you heed the call of the citizens of Nigeria?
Every time I've acted because I thought it would advance the good of all, not my good. If I'm convinced that people are wanting that to happen and it will make a difference, I will have no problem to make that sacrifice. But I'm not driven by a desire for power. I'm not driven by, and as I said to my friends, and this is not pride, most of the people who are in power in Nigeria, let them come out and walk on the streets of Washington with me and know who people will set hands to shake with. So I'm contented enough, that I'm not looking for power for the sake of power. But if making that sacrifice will help Nigeria move forward, I will have no reluctance at all.
All right, we look forward to that time. We know you make the difference because we need someone that can talk to the world community and the people at the same time. Most of the youths of Nigeria, a lot of the good ones are out already, So, the ones at home too, they are barely struggling. We do not have mentors again, quality people we can actually look up to. It's difficult to even count one or two. That's where the problem is. So there's a reason I asked that question, because I know you always support others. You bring people out to help propagate other people's goals. But for yourself, you've not really asked for it. And I think the time is there. So you should really consider it. People are talking about it and you should do it. My final question to you too. Yes, people are, I've been in places where we talk about woo. Obi's name comes up, your name comes up, and so many other names in the North. I think we've narrowed it out to about 5 people on credibility level, but that's not why we are today. But I'll bring some of those guys in future, because we're planning to have a series of credible candidates for the future of Nigeria. Now, my final question to you is this. 15 years from now, where do you see Nigeria? I know there are 2 ways to look at it. If we do the right things, we could be in this way. If we don't do the right things, we could be this way. So I want you to look at both sides of the prison, and in 15 years' time, where do you see Nigeria?
Nigeria has a youth bulge. And if we focus on educating that young population very well, we could be one of the leading economies on this planet in 15 years.
Oh, wow.
If we allow the petty politics to continue, we could be Somalia. Back as that.
Thank you very much, Professor Kedinachi Utomi. He's a mentor's mentor. Thank you so much for aiding our call to the 7 continents of the world. Thank you for your loyalty. Our episode 9, this is episode 9, What the Future Holds. And Prof has been straight, as always is, constant as the Northern Star. You have to plan, you have to walk the talk. It doesn't just happen overnight. You have to produce. Nigeria is she's just a country that pays salaries. That's what governors do, and even some states are borrowing to pay. That's not governance in any way, shape, or form. Governor Oti has shown, even it might not be, to me, it's not what Governor Oti is not extraordinary, but at least he has shown that, that there can be traction, when you see states tiring a kilometer of road for 1 billion naira, that's a height of irresponsibility in governance. For a country that has abundant limestone and bitumen, it shouldn't be a topic of discussion. Antarctica, Australia, Europe, Africa, North America, South America. Thank you for your loyalty. I'm going to call it a wrap there. Prof, thank you so much for your time. It's always fun having you, and we have learned so much already. Thank you.
It's a great pleasure.
Bye, everybody. See you next Friday. Bye.